Welcome to just outside Market Harbour on what is a cold December morning. And generally, it's this time of year, with all the bike shows happening and all new releases coming out, that you start to think of a new bike. A popular category for road bikes these days, with sports bikes and super bikes going more and more extreme, are the supernakeds. However, what used to be a category dominated by Japanese inline fours and generally lower costing naked bikes has now become an arms race to make the most expensive badass motorbikes. Modern supernakeds are badass, quick, buttock clenching machines that are pretty good in every respect, apart from their price. Whilst many naked bikes still come through a fair bit cheaper than their superbike comparison, take the Kawasaki Z1000, Honda CB1000R, etc., the cream of the crop being the KTM Super Duke, the Aprilia Tuono V4, MT10 SP, these are all at least 13.5, 14, sometimes even £15,000 motorcycles. Especially as the pricing of motorcycles these days is not based on how much cash you got in your pocket, it's based on how much you want to pay a month on PCP, and purely rent the bike, then you give it back after 3 years. With that, modern motorbikes are getting very expensive. But what's out there used? Maybe an old Honda CB1000, an old Z1000, a Suzuki GSR maybe. However, look carefully, there are one or two that shine above the rest. A KTM 990 Super Duke perhaps. Or, how about the Aprilia Tuono? The Gen 2 Aprilia Tuono, the last with the V-twin configuration for Aprilia before they went to the Tuono V4, are readily available. Loads are out there, all different ages from around 2005 to around 2010. Starting from as low as 2 something, all the way up to say 5 something. For me, that sounded like a good idea. So this one's mine. A 2008 Aprilia Tuono 1000R. We'll come on later as to why the R makes a difference and how you can tell between them. But I've owned and ridden this motorcycle now for around about a year, done about 8,000 miles on it during that time, anywhere from quick fast switchback roads to tours up and around the country to long motorway stints. I've done a fair mixed bag on this bike and hopefully a lot more to come. When I purchased this bike, it had about 9,000 miles on it. It had a full and complete MOT history, a full and complete service history, and both of those traits have been carried on with my ownership. Things that I've added on over time include the Akrapovic exhaust, the pair of them, a couple of little bits of crash protection from R&G and a couple of homemade ones, a nice little homemade tail tidy just made with a strip of sheet steel, bent a little bit and sprayed black. This nice little fly screen, which we'll talk about more later with the touring capabilities of this bike. This side stand is off a Honda Fireblade. The issue being the original one doesn't stick out far enough. This one just sticks out a bit further and helps with stability. I've got a few luggage options with this tank bag and also a Ventura system on the back, a chain oiler, a Scott oiler fitted just behind this little cover here. Of course, no bike personalisation completely without stickers, so I've gone for some, what I think are pretty good looking Aprilia ones on the belly pan, the mandatory Jizz Machine sticker, some little Showa ones on the forks, and as well for trinket bits, little Brembo socks, and because I ride all year round, the heated grips. But all in all, this whole bike with all these add-ons has cost me no more than £4,000. That is a load cheaper than a modern supernaked, and in the years to come, the value of it shouldn't drop as much or nowhere near even as a modern brand new supernaked will. So that is the specifics of my bike. Let's go for a ride. One thing for those who aren't a fan of the full Digi TFT dashes and like a bit of analog in there, this got a nice mix. What I'll do is go into more detail about the important things that you get from being an owner for a year and briefly touch on the things that you'll get from a day's ride. But if you want to read up about most of that sort of thing, I'll leave links to journal articles about this bike. But from my point of view, engine, pulls from low revs, sounds awesome, and there's plenty of torque and power to lift that front wheel ever so often. I think we better use some of this just in case. Lovely. In my eyes, more than powerful enough for the road. Jesus, wet. And the sound this bike makes. Oh. Unfortunately, when the bike came to me, it never had the original cans, so I'm not sure how it sounds like with them on. But these are the official aftermarket Aprilia Akrapovics, and they sound meaty and juicy and lovely. And that motor, with the gearbox as standard, will pull you up to about 150, no problem. Speaking of the gearbox, usual thing here, it reacts quite nicely to clutchless upshifts, but it is gappy at times. It's not too uncommon when you're giving the throttle a bit of something to be going through the gears, and it will just go from a fourth to a neutral before you go to fifth. Seems to be a general Aprilia trait to have a bit of a gappy gearbox. As long as you know about it and you consciously shift through it, not a problem. Brakes more than adequate. On the front anyway. On the rear, there's a bit of an issue where the reservoir sits too close to the engine and the fluid heats up, so it doesn't quite work as effectively. But with some decent pads, you can still lock it up, so not too much of an issue. Comfort-wise, as you'd expect for a naked bike, nice big flat bars, you're nice and upright. Seat's quite comfortable. The pegs are quite close to you, but that trait is more a question of whether you're into that sort of thing or not. As for the thing that connects this whole bike together, the frame, it is superb. The frame, the suspension, the overall geometry, it is sublime. Quite often the RSVR, the superbike version of this bike, has been often seen as one of the best handling bikes. The suspension that comes as this bike as standard is beautifully sprung for the road. The springs are the connected rates for the majority of riders. The damping is superb for the road, all of which is fully adjustable. Apart from the rear does lack a bit where it isn't compression rebound adjustable, as well as generally being seen as a little bit soggy. But this, among many parts of the motorcycle, are all interchangeable with the RSVR. This is because the whole family of Tuonos from the Generation 1 up to the V4 are all derivatives of the superbike version, whether it be the RSV Melee for the Gen 1 Tuono, the RSVR for the Gen 2 Tuono, or the RSV4 for onwards. The Tuono is a derivative of the superbike. And now it's time to put the ownership hat on as to whether that's a good thing or not. That is all about what you're looking for in a bike. Are you looking for an out-and-out nutty super naked? Because if you are, this is probably not the best option for you. KTM's 990 Super Duke is out-and-out a super naked. Ducati's Hyper Motard is out-and-out a Hyper Motard. Generally speaking, more low-speed stability, you're higher up in the seat, you're more chucking it into corners. If that's what you're looking for, perfect. However, there's a couple of things that some super nakeds can lack versus the sports bike derived versions such as the Tuono. For example, higher speed road holding. This, beautiful, as previously described by the handling. It is sublime. Tank size sometimes on those sort of bikes can be a bit smaller than what you get on this. This is 18 litres. And generally speaking, this bike is more able at multi-purposing than one of those out-and-out nutty bikes. A good example of this is long distance travel. I bought 160 miles from the 18 litre tank before. That screen and that smooth front end means that the wind blast on long distance journeys is pretty bearable. As I've referenced before in my touring on a naked bike video, ding! Smooth, consistent airflow is the key. But I'll let you check that video out for all the other ones I recommend as well. And for luggage options, as I've previously touched on, this little tank bag does a cracking job, and you can get large ones if you wish. The SW Motec Ion ones are the ones that fit beautifully. And for the rear, a big Ventura system. Those two systems combined give you the best opportunity to go long distances on this bike, as I have done with trips to Yorkshire, many trips towards interviews, long distance weekends away as well, all of which is possible on this bike, not a problem. And again, this bike being a derivative of the RSVR gives you many potential possibilities for accessories and add-ons, not only from the luggage point of view and the travel point of view. If you want to upgrade, say, the suspension or that rear shock, all the RSVR options, as well as some Generation 2 Tuono factory options and some other Generation 2 Tuono options, all fit nicely. Loads of things cross over, so there is loads of possibility for you to customise your bike as you want it, using either aftermarket or original RSV parts that are available on eBay at good prices. But it's not only the lovely shiny parts that make this bike what it is. A lot of it is not Aprilia at all, not built by them, not touched by them. For example, the engine is a full road tax unit. And the engine itself is very good for looking after. Valve clearances don't need doing often, in fact hardly ever at all according to most owners. There's many reports of these engines going over 100,000 miles on just general service bits and bobs, and it's all controlled by a Siemens ECU. So in that regard, with so many renowned companies doing bits of this bike, the reliability of it when people talk about, a 10-year-old Italian bike, such as was the premise for the budget bike battle Italia, for this bike anyway, aren't really that founded. Not as bad as many people would think anyway. From my perspective, the engine has only had general servicing. With the engine, so long as you know how to control the dry sump oil system, you'll be good. Electronics wise, no, it started every time I pushed the button. The only warning lights it's ever put up have been taken away immediately, just the same as any bike does when it's thinking, oh, it's something wrong, I'll let him know. Oh no, it isn't, let's go back to normal. Nothing unusual there. The only electronic part I've had to change, which allegedly is quite a common issue due to water ingress, is the speedo sensor. But there's plenty of those kicking around on eBay for not too much money, so not so much of an issue. The only other issue I've had, which is partially related to the bike, but partially not in a way, was one of the headlights cracked. Whilst it would have been accelerated by a stone chip and such like, I did put a slightly higher powerful bulb in there, which weakens the plastic. So whilst it was quite annoying having to get a headlight, which bizarrely was the cheapest from America, it was a UK spec one, but it was cheapest from America, I can't hate on the mechanics of the bike too much for that. There are known issues with these. However, if you know what you're looking for when you buy one, job's a good one. I am going to run through a quick buyer's guide, but if you have any questions about all the smallest little things, or for an opinion on something, or for any specific details of anything I've discussed, Aprilia Performance in Tamworth are the godsend for owners. It's a well-known fact that the Aprilia dealer network is pretty naff at the best of times. However, a former employee of Aprilia UK who was pretty high up in the ranking and who worked for them for several years, set up his own shop, not as a dealer, purely as an Aprilia service centre as such. But with their help in part sourcing, which is also helped by Fowler's, so parts are not a problem, and their knowledge and their desire, you're in safe hands. I'll leave links of how to contact them and how they got Facebook pages and that sort of thing, but I will give you the quick run through with the basic buyer's guide for this bike, what to look out for. If you're looking for an R version, which has the uprated engine and a few other little bits and bobs, due to some Aprilia ignorance as it were, quite often there is no R written on the back or anything, or there's nothing major to distinguish, and sometimes even the logbooks just have it down as a Tuono when it could be an R or a factory or even anything else. But the easiest way when you're looking through the ads is look at the brake calipers. Are they this rounded sort? If so, you've got yourself an R. If they're this sort, then you got yourself a standard bike. If you're looking for a factory or a different version, then that's a different ballgame. But for the vast majority of the bikes out there, they'll either be a standard or an R. That's the easiest way I've found to distinguish between the two. And I would recommend going for one based on age rather than mileage. If you get one that was around 2008 onwards, there is a certain engine number which I'll put up here, but these ones had the lesser powerful alternator, as earlier ones had a 500 watt alternator that burnt out. You can rewire it and replace it with whatever, but the ultimate fix costs around 800 quid. Not desirable, but easily avoidable if you know what you're looking out for. Sprag clutches are a bit of a weak point. If a bike won't start due to some old fuel or something, it'll try and keep turning over and over and over. Keep an ear out for ones that make a funny noise when they start up. Side stands, as mentioned earlier, I've got the fireblade stand on this one because the earlier one puts the bike not stable enough on when you're on the stand, so keep an eye out for any damage on the sides that may have happened if it's fallen over or something. Shock linkages, they can go dry quite quickly. Keep an eye out for a bike that has a rear end that moves nice and smoothly, and if the owner knows about it, say when was the last time you lubricated them, and they give you a good answer, wouldn't be too worried. The fuel tank, which is from a supplier company, and therefore quite a few bikes of this era from that sort of area, I think a few Ducatis and such like, also suffer from the same problem, whereby heavy ethanol fuel that sits in the tank with some plenty of air in it for a long amount of time can cause the fuel tank to expand ever so slightly. Not really an issue, only when you come to take off the tank it might be a bit difficult to put back on. But for me, I generally get through a tank once a week, and at most it'll be 2 or 3 weeks, and that's fine. That's nothing to worry about. And if you are looking at a factory, this is the O-lins issue common with many bikes with these O-lins forks. The pinch bolts, if they're over tightened, it can cause the base of the stanchions to crack. And an issue that you notice with all rear calipers that are underslung rather than on the top or anywhere else. Just keep an eye on whether the pistons or anything are seizing. Underslung generally collects a lot of dirt. But other than that, have a good time. Woohoo! All in all, the reliability crux of it being that, yes, it probably does require a little bit more maintenance than your average Honda or equivalent bike from BMW or such like. As long as you know about it and act appropriately and treat it accordingly, job's a good one. You'll have a whale of a time. I have, 8,000 miles later, fantastic. All in all, it's up to you now whether you're going to go and get one. But, like this fantastic viaduct, quite often new isn't always the best way to go. Sometimes old can indeed be gold. 10 years, or perhaps 100. That's for you to decide. But hopefully, you'll consider it now. Thank you. And from this fantastic place and fantastic bike, goodbye.